Parents of Reddit who have pretended to be angry with your kids for doing something when you were actually secretly impressed, amused. What was it? I was in the kitchen when my son, 7 at the time, called for help from the bathroom. Mom, can you help me get the right amount of Tylenol? When I went in to find him with the bottle of kids Tylenol on the counter with the lid off next to it, I freaked out. How did you get the lid off? You're not supposed to be able to do that. He looked at me in surprise and said, they wrote the directions on the top of the lid. I had to acknowledge that he had a point, but that he shouldn't get into medicine without me. Inside, though, I was so proud of his solving things on his own. When I was a kid, my mum always had to ask me or my sister to open child-proof lids for her. Apparently they're so child-proof, no adults could get in them. When my oldest son was in around the 5th grade, his grades started slipping a little. He was okay with making C's because it wasn't flunking. I asked him, if you were going to hire someone, and one of them made all C's and the other one made all A's, who would you hire? He doesn't miss a beat, looks me straight in the eye and says, I'd hire the one with all C's. The other one could get a job anywhere. I had to walk away so he wouldn't see me laughing. Dang, he should be getting A's just for being such a smart butt. My daughter tried sneaking past me when her mother was at work and tried to get in her mom's makeup, which was in a cabinet above our toilet. I snuck up on her, and right whenever she was opening the cabinet I asked her, what are you doing? She turned around, surprised at first, then grinned as she held her arms out to me. Standing up here so you can hold me? AWW, dang it, I had to hold her after that one. Oh man, my toddler. So we were driving to a large store one evening. As we pull into the parking lot, an elderly woman coming the other direction is taking up the whole lane and pretty much on a collision course with us. Move, lady, comes a tiny voice from the car seat. Begin us. We swerve around the other car and find a parking spot. As we are pulling into it, the little guy just sighs heavily and says, for frick's sake. The wife and I tried so hard to scold him for it, but couldn't keep straight faces. At least he used it situationally appropriate. Another time he and I were playing in the living room. He gathered up a dozen or so toys in his arms, completely overloading his carrying capacity as children do, and then tripped over his own feet. Mere moments after I saw his head disappear from across the play table, he lets out a light sigh and mutters, oh, the indignity. Back to being a hilariously annoying little turd. My wife was getting some things packed for the two of them to go visit her parents for the weekend. When it came time to load the car, she asked him to carry his little travel backpack. It's meant for toddlers to carry, while she grabbed the rest of their stuff. He walks out into another room, picks up a toy for each arm and tells her, sorry, my hands are full. Or a conversation we had. Him, I like that house. It's orange. Me, it is a neat house. Him, yay, it's big. Like you. Me, are you calling me fat? Him, I am. Love the kid. He hasn't done anything bad or destructive really. It's just the sarcastic one-liners from a 2-year-old's mouth that leave us both wanting to explain that he shouldn't talk to his parents that way. But dang if he isn't hilarious sometimes. Oh, the indignity. I bet he just repeated that line, but I'll be damned if it wasn't a perfect use of the phrase. I love hearing children use vocabulary above their age group. My girls curse appropriately. What I mean by that is that they only use curse words in a situation where I, too, would use a curse word. For example, just today my 2-year-old was carrying a plate of her leftovers to the sink as part of the clean up after meals act, and she dropped it. As her uneaten bread crust and carrots hit the floor, she muttered, oh, dang it. My son was maybe 7 or 8 and playing a Sonic game. He got frustrated and called Eggman and butthole. I feigned disapproval and scolded him for swearing, but inside I was just dying. And you know, he's right. Eggman is in butthole. Robotic FTFY. My wife told our boys to clean out their closet. They had a huge pile of clothes they had pulled off hangers out of drawers and left in the middle of the closet. She told them to hang them up and fold them put back in drawers. 5 minutes later she found all the clothes in their dirty clothes hamper. The boys were 6 and 7 years old. I could not keep a straight face as my 7-year-old tried to explain himself and the 6-year-old pretended to make snow angels on the living room floor. Then the 6-year-old tried to explain that it was dark in the closet so they couldn't really see if the clothes were clean or not. so best to err on the side of safety and rewash them. Another time a kid kept picking on my younger son on the bus ride home. After the kid pushed him multiple times and the bus driver wouldn't help him, my son started punching the crap out of him, as much as a 5-year-old can, mind you. Actually, I didn't even pretend to be upset. I had told him that as long as he doesn't start crap, I'll have his back no matter what. Sounds like the bus driver is the one in need of a good, juicy punch. My kids told me that my daughter had drawn all over her wall. Get in there and it was a bunch of boxes, and in each one was a member of the family and what she loved most about them. Well, now you're going to have to live in that house forever. What a sweetie. When I was a baby, I loved getting baths. One night, my mom was upstairs helping my sister with homework, and she heard the tub water start up. She just assumed it was my dad running me a bath. My dad, however, was helping my brother with homework downstairs, and assumed my mom was helping me. When it seemed like the water was running for a very long time, my mom decided to investigate, headed towards the bathroom at the top of the stairs, as my dad was walking up the stairs too. That was when they both realized what was going on and ran to the bathtub. My parents were terrified, in that moment, that they were going to find my drowned body in the tub. My mom pulls the curtains back to see the water to the brim of the tub, me floating on my tummy, grinning from ear to ear, holding myself up with only the tips of my fingers being able to touch the bottom, with my tiny bum sticking out of the water. You can imagine their relief, knowing their 2-year-old didn't kill himself trying to run his own bath. So, they let some water out, and gave me a bath. I would be more worried about my 2-year-old badly scalding himself than drowning in that scenario. Not a parent, but this is a story my parents love to tell. I was maybe 6 or 7, on the school bus, and there was this kid in my grade picking on me because of my height. I'm now 21 and only 5 feet 1. I was sitting at the back of the bus with my friends, and he wanted to sit there, because the back of the bus is for the cool kids right, and he kept poking me and telling me that short people should sit at the front, because of the whole short people at the front rule for group pictures. And I just wanted to have a dang nice conversation with my friends about Barbies or lame homework or whatever it was we talked about. Eventually I got tired of his poking, and punched him straight in the crotch. I don't think I really understood how much it actually hurts, guys. I just did it because I knew it was a sensitive spot. Of course, as soon as the bus pulled up to school, I was sent to the principal's office, and told off severely. They rang my parents, and when they heard, they were all, "I'm so sorry, this isn't like her, it won't happen again, we'll make sure to punish her etc." And I was sent to my room etc. Years later, they finally admitted they were high-fiving once they heard why I punched him, because they were glad I was sticking up for myself. Not my kid but a friend of the family's kid. I was a teenager at the time and he had a bit of a crush on me. We are all outside and this 3-year-old little boy starts running down the street. His parents are yelling his name, letting him know he's going too far and needs to turn around. Kid is not stopping, so his dad has to chase him down the street. As he is being dragged into the house for a timeout, he stops, looks me dead in the eye and says, "I ran so fast Death Kazoo." His dad grabbed him to take him inside as his mom and I are trying our best to hold in our laughter. It was so stinking cute. Notice me Death Kazoo. Notice me. Sorry for the redirect, but I enjoy this story too much not to tell it. Just before my older brother headed off to university, I went out with him and his friends for an evening of fun. I loved hanging out with him and our parents were glad to have us out of the house because our younger sister was having a sleepover party with 8 of her teeny bopper friends. Evening out ended. We arrived back home and without a word exchanged, headed for the garage, opened it up, took out a couple of axes, headed into the house, brandished the axes and limped zombie-like toward the sun porch where all the girls save one were telling each other ghost stories. The one not telling stories was asleep just outside the room but clearly visible to them through glass doors. We approach. We gurgle a bit. The girls see us. There is a hush. We begin to mime chopping the sleeping girl into pieces. The girls scream in unison. My parents come racing down the stairs and realize what's up. They try desperately to keep a straight face while demanding, "Don't you ever pretend to kill your sister with an axe." My sister and her friends demand that we do it again. Don't you ever pretend to kill your sister with an axe. If you're going to do it right. As a teacher, I secretly gave a thumbs up to a girl who pinched her bully so hard that he stopped being annoying for the rest of the day. She nodded and understood. Of course, I made sure the other kids didn't see the thumbs up. They only heard my mandatory no pinching. You're awesome. Not sure if this counts, but whatever. My parents love telling the story of when I broke a giant vase. We had an overhang in our kitchen and my parents put these massive clay pots up there for decoration. The first day my parents have ever trusted me home alone. No friends, leaving, etc. Long story short, we made paper airplanes. One got stuck by one of the pots. We knocked off the pot, shattered everywhere and ruined an upright piano. According to my mom, she wouldn't have noticed any of it, not even the piano damage, if it wasn't for me leaving a vacuum out. What kind of kid vacuums? They figure it all out pretty quick, but want to give me a chance to admit my mistake and own up to it. So they ask me what happened and I deny anything and everything. They finally show me the piano and asked what fell. I say I threw it away. I'm then sent out to the trash to find it. I was gone got 10-15 minutes and come back with the tiniest shard of glass and say that's it. My dad stormed out of the room. I was terrified and admitted it. I found out later that my dad just couldn't handle it anymore and had to leave the room to laugh his butt off. My son was with a group of high school kids drinking whiskey at a golf course at night. One girl got way too drunk. Everyone got scared and left except two guys, one girl, and the passed out girl. My son and his friend carried the girl across the golf course to her home and her parents. They arrived, muddy and intoxicated. The young lady was okay. Her parents were, of course, angry about the whole deal. They called all the involved parents. During the following days, the girl's parents made a few threats about pulling the girl out of school and mandating a change of friends. They were angry with the other kids. It's always the other kids who are a bad influence on our angel. The four involved sets of parents talked on the phone. Everyone calmed down. We made our son apologize to the other three parents. Our son tends to be a leader, sometimes a ringleader. We suspected the latter. He remained friends with the young lady throughout high school. Her parents hired him later that summer to assemble a giant wooden playground in their yard. There was good and bad in the whole situation. Ultimately, the girl was safe, and my son helped his friend when he knew it was going to get him in trouble. When I think of carrying that girl home to her angry parents, I know the boys who ran away that night, and the two who stayed. The right thing to do is always the hardest thing to do. Two boys did that. When I was in 3rd grade, my English teacher was pretty bad. Just like pretty much my whole school back then. I was German. She wrote something on the blackboard in German but misspelled something, and I, being a 3rd grader, said, "Well, Mrs. Whatever, looks like German isn't one of your strengths." In German, of course. My parents had to come to a private talk with the teacher later and scolded me for it, but pretty much as soon as I left that school they told me that they didn't like the teacher either and that they had to try not to laugh during the talk. You were German. You still are. But you used to be, too. Sorry to diverge from it, but I think it's worth a read. At 5 years old, I pushed my 3-year-old sister away from me. She tripped, hit her head on the wall, blood started dripping from her forehead and she started crying. When my parents arrived on the crime scene, they schooled me and said, "Why did you hurt your sister?" Witty 5-year-old me answered, "I didn't hurt her, only the wall did." My father turned away, saying to my mother, "Deal with him, I can't," and he started bursting in laughter. That made me think of Assassin's Creed Brotherhood. "No man can murder me, then I'll leave you to fate." Pushes off building. When my 9-year-old hacked my password and accessed my computer, it was not a simple password. This is the same kid when we were driving along and to pass the time with throwing out sums to our daughter. She was 9 and she wanted to get better. He was 4. I still remember she got 4x9 wrong. We said, "Sorry, that's wrong, try again." He pipes up 36. I nearly crashed the car. Your boy's wicked smart. I remember my old German teacher in elementary school, from Germany here, BTW, was a straight up, strict frickin' B. T. Here was this one instance where she called a kid's parents for disturbing class because she accidentally farted loud in class. This being elementary school, it was bad enough that the poor girl got crap from everyone to begin with for playing the toot trombone. Heck, even the parents were pretty annoyed for making a big thing out of this stupid. Now one day we get homework to think of 5 jokes and write them down. And one of them, that I wrote down, was, teacher's name must niemals verzen, which translates to, teacher's name never needs to fart. When she collected everyone's homework and returned it the next day, she took me right to the principal's office, called my mother and discussed that very thoroughly. Heck, my mother worked like 1 hour away at the time. She had to cancel work, drive the way down to my school and then listen to that skinny C. When she arrived, I could already tell that she was pretty annoyed. After that entire ordeal was over, my mother told me that, after the entire previous ordeal, this was pretty funny, but she also cautioned me never to make my teacher call her off work again. While out for a drive with the family one day, we came across a mother skunk that had been hit by a car and a crew of 3 little orphans hanging around. Very sad, but what can you do? That night, my 2 teenage daughters waited until I fell asleep, took a cardboard box and a towel, borrowed my truck and darned if they didn't go back and catch the baby skunks and hide the box under the porch so they could mother them. They were very friendly and didn't spray or even smell much. There is no wildlife rescue anywhere near and the babies were eating solid food, so we released them the next day over menaces and protests. Had to act angry, but geez, I wouldn't dare go barehand catching skunks. Used to work at a summer daycare camp thing, and we'd have a variety of semi-educational activities projects for the kids set up that we had to be fairly strict with them following, or it was really easy to lose control of the room. This once kid wouldn't participate at all and just draw all day, but I always let him just do his own thing as long as he did it with subtlety because his art was fantastic for a 6-year-old. I mean, obviously there wasn't any real technique yet, but his abstraction was super cleanly stylized and the linear walk was always very deliberate. I would have felt like crap discouraging him from it. I'd always report to head counselor that. No, really. I definitely yelled at him about it but decided it wasn't worth the fight. This is one thing I don't understand. The kid is clearly doing something he is good at and is actually a good skill to have. But no, let's force him to play a sport or something because all the other kids are doing it. And this coming from a huge football and American football fan. Good for you for letting him draw and encouraging him. Not either of my kids, but my buddy's son. We were sitting on his couch watching TV, the front door directly to the left of the television, so you had to walk directly through our line of sight to go out. His 3-year-old son comes down the hallway, arms loaded down with Hot Wheels, trying to hold them down with his children. He gets right in front of the TV and drops one. Just one from this huge stack. He paused, looked at the fallen car and slowly realized he would have to drop them all to pick up the wayward Hot Wheel, loudly said "Goddammit," cue stifled laughter, and a talk about appropriate language. When my son was in 1st grade, he was getting picked on by 2 3rd graders trying to bully him. They took his hat and threw it in a puddle. He beat the living crap out of both of them and got suspended from school. I had to punish him, but it was the most proud I've ever been of him. Totally out of character for my son, he kicked a boy who had been bullying his friend for ages. He was in trouble at school for it, but I was secretly quite proud of him and the bully has left them alone ever since. Damn it. I can't remember what the argument was, but he said something and I had no rebuttal. I was just like, that's an excellent point. He was 7 or 8. When I remember in the middle of the night, I'll edit. I love moments like this, so I'ma hold you to it. My 3-year-old gathered around a birthday cake like the other kids at a party. As each kid tried to grab a lick of icing with their finger, they were stopped by the mom setting up the candles. My son accidentally knocked the cake with his plate, thereby covering the edge of the plate in icing. Without getting excited, he slowly rotated the plate till the icing lined up with his mouth and ate it off the edge of the plate quietly. Then he did it again and again without anyone noticing. I was very impressed. Teenage son threw a large party at our house when wife and I and other kids were away. Managed to bring kids in shifts to avoid attracting attention. Didn't trash the house and did a pretty good job cleaning up. Failed to dispose of folded up beer cases in outside trash. Cracked under questioning. Admitted all. I was the kid, not the parent. When I was in the 5th grade, I went to a private middle school I couldn't give a crap about, and my grades started slipping. My brother in first grade was making all A's, and even though it's like comparing apples to oranges, the rents decided they were going to motivate me by making me jealous of my little bro. Before I came in the kitchen for breakfast, they secretly told my brother a factoid they thought I had no way of knowing. So I walk in, and they're like, your grades have been slipping, but your brother's got straight A's, and he knows the capital of Iceland. Do you know the capital of Iceland? What they'd apparently forgotten is that I had a globe in my bedroom that I spent hours in those pre-internet days playing with. So I'm like, what? You mean Reykjavik? And they just kind of blinked at me and let it go. My 9-year-old son decided to test the Mentos and Diet Coke trick in the living room with the ceiling fan running. I was in the kitchen and he pulled this without my notice until I heard him say, "Oh." On the one hand I wanted to hand him over to an orphanage, on the other I wanted to laugh my butt off. "Oh" might be the worst thing you can hear your kids say when you don't have line of sight. 1990s. My 2 daughters were at home alone and were cut off from the internet for some earlier misdeeds. At the time I was testing out some software which required facial recognition to enter Windows. When I came home I was checking the logs and sure enough they were trying to get into the machine. This program also took pictures of attempts to gain access and the photos were priceless. They were holding up wedding pictures of us trying to fool the login. That's amazing. I hope you still have those pictures. I didn't realize there was facial recognition in the 90s. My computer had enough trouble handling NHL 99 on a good day. Didn't really pretend to be angry, just disagreed even though my kid was spot on. My 3-year-old let me know that he was aware that the reason we took the long way home was because daddy needed to stop by the liquor store that had a window drive-through, because I can't just leave him in the car. Impressed that he pays that much attention. A little ashamed. My second Christmas with a stepdaughter. She was 11. She had been real B all through the holiday season. It was to the point where other people were noticing. 3 or 4 days before Christmas I overheard her talking to her cousin. Cousin asked, "Why are you being so mean to Gunnar?" She responded, "If you pretend you're mad to them, they'll think they must have done something wrong and feel guilty. They'll get you more stuff on Christmas." Some people think this was horribly manipulative, but it should be noted, my family owns a used car lot. I'm not involved in the family business, but that type of thinking is not only accepted, it's encouraged. My kid was in high school and was at a school assembly. There was a boy in the row in front that kept making nasty comments about the boy on stage, who was gay and often bullied. My kid told him to shut up, and the kid jumped up and turned around saying, "What are you gonna do about it? Hit me." The principal told us that several teachers saw it happening and tried to get there to stop it, but my kid stood up and just wailed on him. They told us the kid probably got punched 10 times in the head before they go to them. The boy's parents were furious and wanted to press charges, even after the principal told them that he was the instigator. Finally, the principal asked them if their son had told them WHO beat him up. My 110-pound daughter. The parents looked at their son with utter disgust and declined to press charges. Later, when the principal was explaining all of this to us, she said, "I love hit him." My daughter got a 3-day suspension and the kid she pummeled got 3 days for fighting game and 3 days for bullying. We tried to explain to our daughter that no matter what he did she can't hit people, but honestly we were proud of her for standing up to a bully. So basically we ended up telling her that was her one free pass, but it better not happen again. That was about 10 years ago and she never got in trouble of any kind again, but she still stands up to bullies. My daughter got pulled over for a DUI. She was explaining her encounter with the cop because it was St. Patrick's Day and she's a redhead. She accused the cop of profiling. Had to laugh and go back to being mad. Funny, but there is no excuse for DUI. My son farted on his mom, my ex-wife, on purpose recently. I told him that wasn't really acceptable behavior, but it made me laugh pretty hard later. "Son, I know mommy has been mean to you, so I farted on her for you, dad. I got your back." My young teen son was getting picked on over and over. He is very passive and small and not one to fight, but after months of abuse he told me he wanted to fight the kid picking on him. We sat there having a very civil conversation about it. I told him I would be called into school and would have shown I was upset, and then he would get any punishment from the school, and from me he would be restricted to his room for a week. I asked if he felt it would be worth it and he did not have to answer. Just think about it. We contemplated other options and examined the potential results, both positive and negative. He knew he would likely lose a fight with this much larger kid, but sometimes just standing up for yourself is a win and the abuse might stop. I almost forgot about the conversation and a few weeks later was called to school. My son had a black eye and was going to get detention. I was not mad but put on the upset angry appearance for the school. He was restricted to his room for a week and served the penalty without issues. He lost the fight but was never picked on again by the kid or the group the kid hung out with. Sure, there are other ways and I am certain I will get all the replies that violence isn't the answer. The answer was respect. Even in loss my son gained respect. He understood the consequences of his actions and knew he would get punished, but I would not be upset. To this day he said that changed his complete attitude on school from hating going and being picked on to something he excelled at. I had to pretend to be angry, but my son knew I was pretending because I told him I would be. My 16 years old made a rainbow sign that said, "Make America Gay Again," and hung it on a neighbor's Trump sign. It was hilarious, but illegal, and it's, un-American to hide the neighbor's sign. As we say in NZ and OZ, your kid's a bloody legend. Hopefully this counts. I'm a father to a beautiful pup. Anyway, I was walking her one day when we came upon this lady and her young daughter, maybe 8-10 years old. This lady was screaming at her daughter. I mean yelling obscenities about how she screwed up at school her father left because of her etc. Well, hearing this I planned on saying something to the lady once we were closer, but when we were 5 feet away or so, my dog jumped and basically pushed the lady while barking like crazy. The lady was stunned and gave a little scream. She didn't fall, luckily, but she stumbled backwards. Then, my dog turned around and went up to her daughter and, what looked like in my mind, tried to cheer her up, tail wagging. I of course scolded my dog out of show for pushing the lady, but I was so proud of her. Similarly related, I pretended to be mad at my cat when it dragged a joint of beef onto the floor and ate loads of it. I was seriously impressed though. Skills Wilson. Mad skills. This is the goodest fly boy. He will bring you 10 years of happiness in exchange for a like on this video. Like and subscribe, you magnificent person.